The mining colony of Hestia 7 was not a place where people came to live. It was a place where people came to disappear. The station floated at the edge of known space, surrounded by asteroid fields rich with rare metals. The air always smelled like rust and recycled oxygen. The lights flickered more often than they stayed steady. But for Kira Voss, it was perfect. 3 years ago, Kira had been Commander Kira Voss of the Terran Defense Coalition. He had led Special Forces missions across a dozen worlds. He had been decorated, respected, and feared by enemies of humanity. Now he was just another worker in dirty coveralls, drilling rocks for credits that barely covered his rent. That was exactly how he wanted it. The cantina on level 6 was his usual spot after a long shift. It was a dark place with sticky tables and cheap drinks. The other miners knew him as K and nothing more. He never talked about his past. He never made close friends. He just drank his synthetic whiskey and watched the door. Tonight, the door opened and everything changed. She had to duck to fit through the entrance. 7 feet tall, maybe more. Her skin was the color of old copper, smooth and metallic in the dim light. Her eyes glowed like liquid gold, and they scanned the room with the sharp focus of a predator. 4 pale scars ran across her face in parallel lines, marking her as something important, something dangerous. She was Driven. Kira recognized the species immediately. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Driven. They were warriors, bred for battle, serving as elite soldiers and mercenaries for whoever could afford them. Mostly they worked for the hegemony, the massive alien empire that controlled half the known systems. The entire cantina went silent. Miners stopped drinking. Conversations died mid-sentence. Everyone watched as the alien warrior walked forward, her heavy boots making the metal floor shake with each step. She walked straight toward Kira. He kept his face calm, but his hand moved slowly under the table, reaching for the pistol strapped to his thigh. His heart beat faster, but he controlled his breathing. He had faced worse odds than this. He had survived worse nights than this. The Driven stopped in front of his table. She looked down at him with those burning golden eyes. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said the words that shattered his careful, hidden life. "I have been searching the galaxy for you, human. Former commander of the Terran Defense Coalition Special Operations Unit 7, the siege of Prometheus Station. You saved my life." "I do not know what you are talking about," Kira said, but his voice was not as steady as before. The Driven reached up and touched the scars on her face. "These marks show my rank among my people. I am Valkyra of House Driven. I was a young warrior then, barely tested. The station was collapsing. My squad was dead. The enemy had surrounded me." She paused, her golden eyes locked on his. "You came through the fire. You carried me out. You did not have to. I was not your ally. I was not even your species. But you saved me anyway." But something in him could not do it. He had dragged her half a mile through hell to the evacuation ships. He had never expected to see her again. "Among my people," Valkyra said, her voice deep and serious, "a life debt is the most sacred bond. When someone saves your life, you owe them everything, your strength, your blade, your loyalty. Until the debt is repaid or you die trying." She pressed her massive hand against her chest. "I have spent 3 cycles searching for you across 47 star systems. I have tracked every rumor, followed every trail, and now I have found you. I just want to be left alone." They wore black armor with the red symbol of the hegemony on their chests. They moved fast and professional, weapons up, scanning for targets. "Human," the lead soldier shouted. "Kira Voss, you will come with us." "How do they know my name?" Kira took cover behind an overturned table and started returning fire. His shots were precise, hitting weak points in the enemy armor. 3 years of mining had not made him forget how to fight, but there were too many of them. For every soldier they dropped, 2 more came through the door. "We need to leave," Kira shouted over the noise. "My ship is at Dock 7, Valkyra called back. She grabbed a soldier by the throat and threw him into his companions. "Can you make it?" They reached the dock just as more hegemony ships appeared in the sky outside the station's windows. A full response fleet. Whatever they wanted from Kira, they wanted it badly. Valkyra's ship was a sleek Driven cruiser called the Oathkeeper. The ramp was down, the engines already warming up. They sprinted aboard as plasma fire scorched the ground behind them. "Strap in," Valkyra commanded, sliding into the pilot's seat. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced speed. Kira barely had time to grab a handhold before the ship launched. The force of acceleration pressed him against the wall. Through the viewport, he watched Hestia 7 shrink away, watched the hegemony cruisers turn to pursue. "They are following us," he said. "They will not catch us." Valkyra's voice was calm, confident. The Oathkeeper is faster than anything they have. Why go through all this trouble for one human? They had been running for 3 days now, jumping from system to system, never staying long enough to be tracked. Kira had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw hegemony soldiers kicking down his door. Valkyra seemed untouched by exhaustion. She sat in the pilot chair, watching the scanner displays, her golden eyes never resting. Sometimes Kira wondered if her species even needed sleep. "You have questions," she said without turning around. "I can hear you thinking." "Just a minor. Whatever it is, they are afraid of it. During the siege, I pulled some data from their main computer, military intelligence. I never looked at it. I never decrypted it. I just wanted to forget everything about that place. I should have removed it years ago, but," he shrugged, "I thought it was safer to keep it hidden. If it is just random military files." The 2 weeks of travel were strange. Kira had been alone for 3 years, trusting no one, talking to no one about anything real. Now he was trapped on a small ship with an alien warrior who had sworn her life to his protection. It was uncomfortable at first, awkward, but slowly they began to talk. Valkyra told him about her people. The Driven had once been conquerors themselves. Thousands of years ago, they had built an empire that spanned half the galaxy. They had been proud and powerful and free. Then the hegemony came. The war lasted 200 years. In the end, the Driven lost. But instead of destroying them, the hegemony did something worse. They broke them, changed them. Used advanced genetic science to modify the Driven at their very core, making them more obedient, more controllable. The proud warriors became servants. Now the Driven worked as soldiers for hire, their legendary skills used to enforce hegemony rule across the galaxy. Most of them did not even remember what freedom felt like. They followed orders because that was what they were made to do. "But not you," Kira said. Valkyra shook her head. "The life debt is older than the hegemony. It is written into our blood, deeper than anything they could change. When you saved me, something woke up inside me, something from the old times." She touched the scars on her face. "For the first time, I felt like myself, the real self, not the one they created." He had felt something similar when he walked away from the military. The person they had made him into, the perfect soldier who followed orders without question. He had killed that person, or tried to. "Tell me about Prometheus Station," Valkyra said one night. "What really happened there?" "It was supposed to be a simple mission," he finally said. "Secure the station, stop the enemy from accessing the research data, clean and quick." He shook his head. But nothing about that place was simple. He told her about the moment he realized his own commanders knew about it, that they had made a deal. "I was ordered to destroy the evidence," he said quietly. "Kill the witnesses, burn everything, make it look like the enemy did it. And I copied everything I could find onto that chip. I thought maybe someday I could expose what really happened. But by the time I escaped, I was a wanted man. The coalition called me a traitor. The hegemony wanted me dead. I had nowhere to go." "You gave up everything to do what was right," she said. "Among my people, that is the highest form of honor, the kind that cannot be programmed or controlled." "A true one." Now she ran an information network from a hidden station, selling secrets to anyone who could pay. When Kira walked into her workshop, Alina stared at him like she was seeing a ghost. "You are supposed to be dead," she said. "I get that a lot." "Show me what you have got." "You need to see this," she said, "both of you." "According to these files, the hegemony found it 60 years ago. They have kept it secret ever since." She pointed at the screen. "Do you know what it contains?" "And the access codes." She turned to Kira. "You have been carrying the key to freeing an entire species in your arm for 3 years." For the first time since he had known her, she looked afraid and hopeful. "You would do this?" she asked. "You would risk everything for my people?" Something that would shake the entire galaxy. The journey to the Ember Vault would take them across half the galaxy. The vault was hidden in a dead system, surrounded by asteroid fields and radiation storms that made navigation nearly impossible. The hegemony had chosen the location well. Even knowing where it was, reaching it would be dangerous. But first, they needed help. A small ship with 2 people could not hope to break into a hegemony-secure facility. They needed fighters, they needed weapons, they needed a miracle. Alina Chen had connections throughout the outer reach. She sent word to every resistance cell, every pirate fleet, every group that had reason to hate the hegemony. The response was slow at first. Most thought it was a trap. Others simply did not believe the Ember Vault existed. But then the humans started coming. They arrived in ones and twos, then in dozens. Old military ships held together with patches and hope. Cargo vessels converted into gunboats. Fighters piloted by men and women who had lost everything to the hegemony and had nothing left to lose. Valkyra watched them gather at Alina's station, and she did not understand. "These people do not know you," she said to Kira one evening. "They do not owe you anything. Why do they come?" "Because they believe in something bigger than themselves. We build things that will outlast us. We had dreams." She looked at her hands, the hands of a warrior bred for someone else's wars. "I do not remember what that felt like. None of us do. Not training, not discipline, something else." She watched a young pilot work on his damaged fighter for 30 hours straight, refusing to sleep until it was ready. She saw a crew of former miners strap themselves into a ship that had a 50% chance of exploding during the jump to lightspeed. She listened to commanders plan assaults that they knew would cost them their lives. And she began to understand. "You do not fight because you think you will win," she said to Kira. "You fight because you refuse to lose. It is what makes us human." Other species fought for territory, for resources, for survival. Humans fought for ideas. It should not have worked. They were small and fragile. Their lives were so short that a single Driven could outlive 3 generations of them. They had no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. By every measure, they should have been conquered and forgotten long ago. Instead, they had spread across the stars in just 200 years. They had built alliances with species 10 times their age. They had earned respect through sheer stubborn refusal to accept their limitations. She asked Kira about it during a quiet moment as they reviewed the battle plans together. "How do you keep going?" she asked. "When everything says you should fail. We do not know when to quit. And that changes everything. Hegemony killed him 10 years ago." Kira's eyes were distant. "That is another human thing. We remember our dead, we carry them with us, and we make sure their sacrifice meant something." "They know," she said. "Not about the attack, about you." She pointed at Valkyra. "The Hegemony High Council has declared your life debt void. They say it violates your genetic programming. They have ordered you to return for reconditioning. It cannot be voided by decree. It was not a question. He is my brother. If there is any hope of freeing them, it is there." She looked at Kira with those golden eyes. "I started this journey because I owed you a debt, but that is not why I will finish it. Not the honor of following orders, the honor of doing what is right, even when it costs you everything." She stood straighter. "If I must fight my own brother to free my people, then I will fight. That is the human way, and it is my way now. He would have liked you. On star charts, it was just a number, a warning, a place to avoid. The radiation storms that surrounded it had destroyed 100 ships over the centuries. The asteroid fields that filled it were dense enough to crush anything that slowed down. And at the center of it all, hidden in the shadow of a dying star, was the Ember Vault. The human fleet emerged from lightspeed at the edge of the system. For a moment, everything was quiet. Then the sensors came alive with warnings. "Hegemony ships," Alina reported from her station aboard the command vessel. "Lots of them. I count 64 warships in defensive formation around the vault. 64 ships against their 47. Bad odds, but not impossible. They had planned for this. They had trained for this. What they had not planned for was the additional signal that appeared moments later. More ships dropping out of lightspeed," Alina said. Her voice was tight. "It is the third fleet, Commander Drock." Then 50, Valkyra moved to stand beside Kira. Her face was calm, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "My brother does not take chances," she said quietly. "He has brought enough firepower to destroy a planet. They knew we were coming. I had hoped we would not meet like this. You have caused more trouble than your species is worth. Surrender yourself and your fleet, and I will grant your people quick deaths. Resist, and I will make them suffer." He turned to his fleet commanders, their faces displayed on screens around the bridge. "You all heard him. This is it. No retreat, no surrender. We either reach that vault or we die trying." And humans had a strange way of turning fear into fuel. "All ships," Kira commanded. "Attack." The humans fought with fury and desperation. Valkyra flew the Oathkeeper herself, carving a path through the enemy ships toward the vault. Kira manned the weapons systems, his hands moving across the controls with deadly focus. Together, they destroyed 5 enemy ships in the first 10 minutes, but the losses were mounting. Human ships exploded in flashes of light. Names that Kira had learned over the past weeks, faces he had come to know, vanished from the display one by one. The old miner who had told jokes in the mess hall, the young pilot who had reminded him of himself years ago, the crew that had volunteered knowing they would not survive. They all died, and still the humans pushed forward. "We are breaking through," Elena reported. "The vault is ahead. My brother always did prefer to finish things himself. Kira, he has 100 soldiers on that ship. We cannot win. I will not let you die for me. That is my final order." Behind them came Commander Drock himself, a massive plasma blade in his hands. Kira faced them alone. "One human," Drock laughed. "You think one human can stop me? Let us find out." Another blow sent him to his knees. Blood filled his mouth. Drock stood over him, his golden eyes cold. "Impressive," the Dreven commander admitted. "For a human, but it ends now." And he smiled, because through the ship's sensors he could see the Oathkeeper's escape pod reaching the vault's entrance. Valkyra had made it. "You are wrong," Kira said, blood on his lips. "It does not end, it never ends." And she had activated something. The last thing Kira saw before the darkness took him was a pulse of light, spreading out from the vault like a wave, reaching across the stars toward every Dreven in the galaxy. Then there was nothing. When Valkyra found him hours later, he was barely breathing. The wound in his chest should have killed him. By every medical standard, he should have been dead. But humans, she had learned, did not follow the rules. She carried his broken body to the medical bay, fighting through the chaos of the awakening. The pulse had worked. Across the galaxy, Dreven were waking up, truly waking up for the first time in 1,000 years, including Drock. Her brother found her in the medical bay, his eyes different now. Confused, wondering, free. "What have you done?" he asked. Valkyra looked down at the human on the table, the man who had given everything for a people not his own. "I finished what he started," she said. "I honored my debt." Valkyra smiled through tears she had not known she could shed. "Yes, we won." Recovery was slow. 3 months in a hidden resistance outpost at the edge of known space. 3 months of surgeries and treatments and long nights where the pain was so bad that Kira wished he had not survived. But Valkyra was there, every day, every night. She sat beside his bed and told him stories about her people. She read him reports from across the galaxy. She held his hand when the nightmares came. The galaxy was changing. The pulse from the Ember Vault had reached every Dreven in existence. Billions of warriors scattered across thousands of worlds, all of them waking up at the same moment. The genetic chains that had bound them for 1,000 years dissolved in an instant. For the first time since the fall of their empire, the Dreven were truly free. The effects were immediate and chaotic. Dreven soldiers abandoned their posts. Mercenary companies collapsed overnight. The hegemony's military strength, built on the backs of enslaved warriors, crumbled like sand in water. Some Dreven did not know how to handle their freedom. After generations of following orders, thinking for themselves felt strange and terrifying. They wandered, lost, looking for purpose in a universe that suddenly seemed too large. But others remembered. Deep in their newly awakened minds, ancient memories stirred. Stories passed down through blood and bone, songs that had been silenced for 1,000 years. The Dreven had been conquerors once. They had been builders and dreamers and more. They began to remember who they were. Valkyra's brother Drock was one of the lost ones at first. The awakening had shattered everything he believed about himself. He had spent his entire life serving the hegemony with perfect loyalty, and now he understood that loyalty had been programmed into him, forced upon him, stolen from him. He came to see Kira one morning, 3 weeks into the recovery. Valkyra moved to block him, but Kira waved her off. "Let him speak," Kira said. Drock stood at the foot of the bed, his massive form seeming smaller somehow. His golden eyes were uncertain, questioning. "I almost killed you," Drock said. "I would have killed you. Like all of them. We do not know how to repay it." But the tide had turned. Free Dreven joined with human resistance fighters, forming alliances that would have been unthinkable weeks before. The first great battle came 6 weeks after the awakening. A hegemony fleet attacked a Dreven colony world, trying to capture the population and reverse the genetic liberation. They expected the Dreven to be confused, disorganized, weak. They were wrong. Commander Drock led the defense. He commanded his first free soldiers, warriors who chose to follow him rather than being forced to. They fought with a fury the hegemony had never seen. not the cold efficiency of programmed soldiers, but the blazing passion of people fighting for their own future. The hegemony fleet was destroyed in 3 hours. News of the victory spread across the galaxy. More Driven rallied to the cause. More human ships joined the fight. Species that had lived under hegemony rule for centuries began to whisper about rebellion. A spark had been lit, and it was spreading into a fire. Kira watched all of this from his hospital bed, then from a wheelchair, then from the bridge of a rebuilt Oathkeeper. Valkyra never left his side. "You should be out there," he told her one day. "Leading your people, they need you." The connection between them had grown beyond obligation or gratitude. It was something deeper now, something neither of them had expected. "I am just a human," he said quietly. "I will grow old, I will die. Your people live for centuries. You could find someone better." "You changed the galaxy," she said. "You freed 1 billion souls. You gave my people back their future." She squeezed his hand gently. "And you showed me what it means to truly live, not just to exist, not just to follow orders, but to live, to choose, to love." All of it crumbling under the weight of her words. "I do not know how to do this," he admitted. "Any of this. The galaxy is changing. Everything is different. I spent 3 years hiding from my past, and now I am somehow in the middle of a revolution." "That is what partners do." Alina Chen performed the ceremony, reading words that mixed both traditions into something unique. "You came from different worlds," Alina said. "Different species, different histories, but you found each other across the stars. You saved each other. You changed each other." She looked at them both. "Today, you choose to continue that journey, together." She towered over him, this warrior who had hunted him across the galaxy. He looked up at her golden eyes and saw his future reflected there. "I searched the galaxy for you," Valkyra said softly, "and I found more than I was looking for." It was strange, given that their species had never kissed before. It was imperfect in 100 ways. It was perfect. The galaxy continued to change. The hegemony fell piece by piece, their empire crumbling without the Driven to hold it together. New alliances formed. New governments rose. The universe was being remade, and at the center of it all were 2 people who had started as debtor and debtowed. Years later, historians would write about the liberation. They would analyze the tactics, the politics, the technology. They would debate whether it was inevitable or accidental, whether it was the work of many or the spark of a few. But Valkyra knew the truth. She wrote it in her memoirs, in the quiet years after the fighting ended, when she and Kira had found a small world to call their own. "Humanity's greatest strength was never their bodies or their technology," she wrote. "It was their refusal to accept that anything was impossible, and their strange ability to make others believe it too." That same sad, knowing smile she had fallen in love with years ago, but it was not so sad anymore. Time and peace and love had softened it into something warmer. "Make sure you include the good parts," he said. She smiled back. "It is all good parts." One had hidden from the galaxy, broken by war. Together they had changed everything. Together they had come home.